Feeling so vulnerable not being behind my desk, but I wanted to do a video on what it's been like running a bookstore. And so I figured it made more sense to actually be in the bookstore. And saying that I own a bookstore or that I run a bookstore feels really disingenuous because honestly, like this is Jessica's idea. This was her brainchild. My wife, Jessica, who writes young adult fantasy novels over there in the back. This was her idea, and she's really the brains behind all this. She's just kind of letting me play along. But let me just give you a quick intro into how we got here in case if you haven't been following along. So again, my wife, Jessica Deen Norris, is a young adult fantasy author. She has 4 books out. She's working on the 5th one right now, and she's done really, really well with it. She got to the point where she needed a third-party warehouse to ship her books because she does everything direct. She is on Amazon and all that, but she has her own Shopify store where you can buy her books direct and things get shipped out. And in the beginning, all of her books that were getting printed would come to our house and she would package them up and we'd bring them to the post office and ship them that way. That very, very quickly got unmanageable. And so she hired a third-party warehouse where the books, after they would be printed, they'd be shipped to that warehouse and the warehouse would store the books, the warehouse would see the orders come in, and then they would fulfill those orders for her. And that worked out fine, but as Jessica's book business grew, the orders got more and more complicated because she didn't just have 4 books. She had 4 books and each one had a paperback variant and a hardcover variant, and some of them had signed variants. She also had a special edition omnibus out and book boxes and collector's boxes out. So it just got to the point where Jessica felt like she didn't have a good handle on her own distribution, and she really wanted to be able to have that last touch before her books got to her customers. And then also just to have eyes on the inventory that she had on hand because she really didn't have a lot of visibility into that. So Jessica comes to me in November, 7, 8 months ago, and says, hey, what if we build a warehouse to ship my books out of and open a bookstore? Now, at the time, we owned this building that I'm standing in, but it's being rented to somebody else. They were leaving, and so it was going to be vacant anyway, and there was a large area in the back that really wasn't being used. Now, for me, overthinker, overplanner, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, we could talk about doing that at some point eventually. But for Jessica, high activator who likes to get things done quickly, we were going. So 6 months later, May 30th, 2026, we had our grand opening and opened the bookstore. We have the warehouse that we built in the back that all of her books get stored in, and we ship those out every single day ourselves. In addition to the books that are purchased from the bookstore, because we can ship those as well, because we have our website. What's been really fun about this for me is that I've gotten to see a whole new kind of business than I had previously been exposed to. So coming up in public accounting, I did a lot of governmental audits, a few construction companies and things like that. And then whenever I became the CFO of a bank, I got really good at banking and I understood financial institutions. Then I took my CPA practice full time and so got to see service-based business and what that's like and having clients and having employees and having a remote-based business. At the same time, Jessica's running her book business, and so then I'm able to see like a direct sale author business, kind of e-commerce. But now with the bookstore, I get to see brick and mortar in-store retail, which is totally different than service-based or e-commerce. Now, as far as the store goes, like the actual store itself, this is all Jessica's brainchild. Our whole thing with this is that we know that you could just as easily order books off of Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And if you go to Barnes & Noble, you'll get a much bigger selection of books. But something we can offer that you can't get from Amazon and you can't really get from Barnes & Noble is the experience. So every single detail of this bookstore has been meticulously thought out by Jessica. The color, the direction you walk when you walk in, the first thing you see, the last thing you see, every single piece and every single step is very thought out by Jessica. Even when picking the books, I think there's ways that you can actually order basically a bookstore starter kit where they just send you a variety of books to put on your shelves. And we didn't want to do that. Jessica went through and picked every single book that was going to be on our shelf. And every single week, whenever she orders inventory, she looks through what sold, what didn't sell, what new releases are coming out, what sold that has a book 2 available that we could stock, and so on. So everything in here is extremely curated and very specific to what we think our audience is really going to like. And so when you walk in, you see specifically what we want you to see, the colors and everything else. We have a particular smell. There's a candle that we have a little heat warmer on so that you smell the certain thing. We have a fake fireplace that crackles, and we have music that we feel fits the vibe of the season so you hear the things that we want you to hear. And even down to the last moment where whenever you check out, we specifically don't charge credit card fees because 1, we just believe that you should be able to pay however you want to pay. And 2, why would we want the very last thing that happens before you leave to be you get a penalty basically added for supporting our bookstore? And actually for me, if you're going to pay with a card, that gets deposited into our bank account within, I think, 3 business days. And I don't have to do anything to make that happen. But if you pay with cash, which is totally fine, we actually have to go to the bank and get that cash deposited. And we have to track how much cash stays in the register and make sure that we have enough denominations to give change when we need to. So I'm not discouraging using cash or anything else. I'm just saying that we wanted to make sure that every step of the process when you walk through the store is extremely thought out and a very good experience from point A to all the way to point Z. Now, I don't even fully understand everything that Jessica does whenever she orders inventory. I know she looks at reports from our POS system to see what we have on hand, how many we've sold. She has a way of checking new releases and popular titles and things like that. We have distributors that we use, and so she goes through and makes those orders. And then whenever those orders come in, she actually has to go through every single book. Some of the books arrive damaged, so we have to ship them back to the distributor to get credit and reorder the book if we need it on the shelf. And then we go through our system to show that we have the book so that our system reflects specifically how many of each copy we have on hand. And every single thing in the bookstore has a barcode with the price on it. Some of the books that you get from the distributor, they have the price already printed on the barcode. And if that's the case, then that's fine. But a lot of the times they don't, or a lot of the merch that we sell doesn't have the price printed on the barcode. And we don't mark anything up over MSRP, but what we have to do if it doesn't have the price on the barcode is we have to go in and create a barcode in our system, print out the little label and stick it to the item. Again, because we don't want there to be any question about what something costs. We want everyone to be able to have a great experience when they come through the bookstore. Now, on the stuff that I deal with, because that's the stuff that I understand, I'm basically the back office. Day to day, what that looks like right now is monitoring the cash, making sure that we have enough cash on hand, making sure that we have enough cash in the register to cover. On a daily basis, that consists of me checking the cash in the bank and the cash on hand in the register to make sure that we have enough money to cover the upcoming bills and enough cash in the register to give change when we need to. Also, I obsess over the data. So on an hourly basis almost, I'm checking to see the sales and what's sold and the margins and everything like that. I don't have to do that, but I really like it. Weekly, I take all the information from our sales and I go through, since I use Profit First for the bookstore, it's a little bit different than for a service-based business. With the bookstore, we have inventory and we have sales tax. And so with Profit First, I have to recognize that first, that sales tax money that we've collected from our customers, that's not our money. That has to be sent to the government. And so I don't want to allocate on our Profit First system based on what we've collected for sales tax. So whenever I run our allocations, I see the money coming in and I take whatever the sales tax collected was and actually move that to a separate bank account called sales tax. Next, we want to make sure that whenever we sell something, that we can replace the thing that we sold. So if we sell any one of these books, I know exactly how much we paid for that book. And so I can pull reports from Shopify that says of the sales that you had, the cost was this, our cost to basically buy that inventory. So whatever that cost was, I put that aside in a separate bank account called inventory. And whenever we make our inventory orders, that's the bank account that pays for those. Whatever's left over after subtracting out sales tax and subtracting out inventory is what we call in the Profit First world, real revenue. That's the actual revenue that we made that we can use to run the business. And that gets allocated between profit, tax, owner's pay, and operating expenses. So that allocation, that moving the money to inventory, sales tax, and all the other bank accounts, I do that on a weekly basis. We've got some great girls who work here for us, manning the counter whenever we can't be here. So every other week we have payroll and I get that run through Gusto. They have their hours logged through Gusto, so it makes it really easy for me just to review that quickly and get that paid. And speaking of the employees, every week we do the scheduling. And usually there's enough shifts available for each girl to have 4 different shifts. And so I try and make it to where they each have 2 opening shifts and 2 closing shifts, and that no one's working more than 2 days in a row if I can help it. Sometimes it can't be helped, but I try to be as fair as possible as far as spreading out the hours. Oh, something else that we do weekly, we got these people counters that every time somebody walks through the door, it counts a person. And so I get the reports to see how many people came in each hour of each day. And I've got a dashboard that I keep up with to show how many people come in on different days of the week and different hours of the day. And then we can use that to figure out our conversion rate. So what percentage of people who are walking through the door are actually buying something, and what hours of the day and what days of the week are the best days for shopping. Right now, we're open 10 to 5 Monday through Friday and 10 to 2 on Saturday. So we're open like most retail hours. But at some point, someday in the future, we may consider having seasonal hours or staying open a little bit later or closing a little bit earlier or closing on an extra day of the week or something like that. But honestly, looking at the data, each week has been so different that there's no way for me to find any real correlations right now. I think part of it is just that it's summertime, and so you've got sports travel, you have vacations, and no one's keeping a consistent schedule. But then also we just haven't been open long enough to have enough data to be able to see any kind of correlations. So right now it's just data, it's just being stored in a dashboard. And I try and look at it and make connections here and there. But as soon as I start to see like, oh, our Wednesdays are slow, the very next Wednesday will be like our best day of the week. Now, we've been open for just over a month, and so I don't really have like a monthly cadence yet, other than just making sure that the bookkeeping is up to date, looking at the financial statements and things like that. The next thing that we're going to be working on is actually kind of rearranging some things in here to see if maybe it helps the flow of traffic, to see if some of the things that don't get noticed as much do better in other areas of the store. So some of the differences that I've noticed in running a physical retail store as opposed to say like e-commerce versus an online service-based business. With my online service-based business, my CPA practice, it's very labor intensive, but there's not a lot of overhead. Basically, it's labor and software and then a few other costs. But for us to get paid, we actually have to do the work. And if we want to get paid again, we got to do the work again. There's no like passive income in service-based business. You have to be doing the work in order to get paid. With a direct sell author business, it's interesting because like with a lot of e-commerce businesses, you're buying other people's things and then reselling them, or you might be making things and you have to make more and more of them. Like maybe you make candles and you have to just keep making them every time you sell them. What's interesting with an author business is that a lot of the work and cost goes in one time on the front end when you actually produce the book, when you spend time writing it, having it edited, doing the cover designs and everything else. After that, having the books printed, you actually have a pretty good margin between what you sell the book for and the print cost of it. The problem is doing direct sales e-commerce author business is almost 100% of your sales are going to come from paid ads. And so that paid ad cost eats up a ton of the margin you might have otherwise had on that business. Now, retail is actually totally different from both. It's not passive. We have to have people working at the register, checking people out. It's not like a, self-checkout type thing like you would do on a website. So the overheads for this are actually pretty high. Now, we're fortunate enough to own this building, so we're basically paying ourselves rent to run the building, and that rent covers the utilities, the insurance, the property taxes, and all those things. But then we also have labor costs, and so our overhead just to run the store is fairly high. And the margins are pretty slim. And so for an in-person retail store, we rely on volume. The more people we can get through the door, the more people we can get actually buying something and putting a couple extra things in their cart, the better that we can do to make sure that we can keep providing a good experience. And so then what we try to do is find ways that we can go above and beyond. Something that you could never get from Amazon, that you can never get from Barnes & Noble, but that doesn't really cost us anything extra. So for example, we had somebody reach out saying that their daughter was really, really wanting this book that was releasing, I think, a couple of Tuesdays ago. She really wanted to make sure that she could get the book that day, the day that it released. And so she asked us if we'd be able to get it for her. And as a bookstore, we actually can. We can order new releases and we get them before the release date. We cannot put them out until the release date, but we can have them come in. So what we were able to do for this person is actually have them pay for the book and order it so that when it came in, before release date, we had it already packaged for her and could tell her to come on release date anytime during the day and just come pick it up. So she's able to get the book in hand that day. We've had other situations where somebody ordered online a book that we actually had in store, and because we had somebody here, they were able to get up and go pick the book up off the shelf, put it in a bag, register it up, and send the notification to the customer saying that their book was ready for pickup within a couple of hours. We have people reaching out asking if we can get certain editions or special editions of books that they love. And a lot of times we can get those where they might be sold out on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble. I used to say that we can't compete with the convenience of Amazon where you can just order from your couch, but now we have our website where you can literally order from your couch. And have you noticed lately that everything you order from Amazon is your shipment has been delayed? I'm sorry, there was a problem with your order. And you're supposed to get this free 2-day shipping, but it always seems to be a little bit after 2 days. We are here enough because I have an office here at my CPA practice, and because we live near the bookstore and we have the girls working here, that the orders that we've had online so far, we've been able to package those and ship them out the very next day. And the orders that people do for pickup, they're available usually that same day. So I used to say that we couldn't compete with Amazon on convenience, but actually I feel like we can. And I used to say that we couldn't compete with Barnes & Noble on just the selection of books that we have, but honestly, we could order almost any book that you want. So I don't know, this is feeling a little bit like a commercial, and I didn't mean it to be that. I figured this has taken up so much of our lives over the last few weeks, last few months. I just wanted to share what it was kind of like from my perspective running a bookstore. Jessica has a whole different perspective because she's the one designing the whole thing. But we have so many things planned with events and sales and promotions. I'm just really excited for what this is. And again, it's been fun to get out of CPA world sometimes and not deal with the IRS and QuickBooks support, but get to deal with books and something just enjoyable. I have to work really, really hard in the CPA practice to make the tax preparation process as enjoyable as possible, like to make it suck as least as it can. And a lot of times whenever I'm preparing a tax return, I'm delivering bad news to somebody because maybe they owe more taxes than they thought they would. So it is so refreshing to get to sometimes just put on the bookstore owner hat and the literal polo and just sell books and just talk about the books that we're reading and the new things that we have. But I feel like, I don't know, stories are important, and I'm glad that we get to bring stories to our community and to people who really want them. All right, I hope this was fun. If you want to check out our bookstore's website, you can get that in the, what is it called? The description. I'll put that there, and yeah, I'll see you next time.